Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Rex Sykes, and welcome to Create Your Best Life with Rex. This is our second episode. If you watched last week, we're going to continue on some of these important topics and concepts that we introduced last week, and we're going to continue to do that this week. I just want you to know a little program note that this is a work in progress, meaning that there's been some um, technical issues that we've been wrestling with that will be resolved along the way. So I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for being here. And I encourage you to like, share, and comment. And if you have questions, do so in the chat. I am blessed and I'm very grateful to have an incredible co host. This gentleman is an amazing maverick when it comes to marketing and understanding how the digital world works in terms of creating funnels and revenue and business. And so we're going to bring you the very finest of both transformational technologies, mindsets, practices, and principles that some people think are soft science, but we're also going to bring you some of the hard sciences in terms of making money, increasing your wealth and your abundance and your health and your happiness and all that sort of stuff. So I want you to help me welcome right now Mr. Danny Walsh, who should be showing up right there.
Hey, how we doing?
I'm great. How about you, sir?
Doing good. Pleasure as always. And Rex, listening to that intro, and I'm humbled, and it's a pleasure to be working with you. Pleasure to be bringing this to the people. And yes, technology must work, right? We covered that last week. But all the technology aside, you can't beat a book. And I've pulled out the Amazon and ordered this book. You might recognize this guy, right? So this is your book, and it's arrived literally. The cardboard thing is discarded on the chair at the side. I couldn't wait to open this thing up. This is a piece of work. This is, clearly I know you're proud of this, but there's something that jumps out to me straight away when you do the thing, right? You open the book and you kind of like say, hey, have a quick look through. What can I glean immediately? Within 5 minutes of opening this thing, I've gleaned a lot. And I guess that's testament to you, your experience. This is not one of those like reading a day books. You might be able to, but there's a lot going on. But talk to me a little bit about this. And I don't want to hijack the show, but I think we need to get into this because this is gold.
Well, thank you. I mean, and thank you for bringing it up and putting it on this second show, like just right off the top. That's wonderful. I appreciate it. I'm very proud of the book, and yeah, it comes from years of experience, both in whole brain and accelerated learning and education, and presenting material. And presenting material in a way that people can easily apply it and then transform their lives. I mean, that is the goal. And for many years, I did not want to put out books because books, when people would come into my workshops, they sit there and they wait for themselves to hear something that I would say that they read in my book. And so they aren't necessarily present. And you want people to be present so that like a sponge, they can absorb what's going on as opposed to, trying to fit everything into the way that they already learn. But so the book is structured in a particular way. It's also like my voice whispering to you in a very conversational style. There's some conventions that seem maybe weird to some people, grammar things or boldness or underline, but they're all conventions to appeal both to the conscious and the unconscious mind of the reader, and to embed in them the both the possibility of change and the wherewithal to make that change. So, and then there's stories of people who have overcome, obstacles. There's some personal stories from me and other things, as well as the principles and practices that people, ought to be doing, to make their lives the kind of lives that they want. That's why the book is called Life on Your Terms, because you design it and you create the life that you want to live and to enjoy, and hopefully you help other people do the same.
Yeah, and I think it's important, folks, just joining the second show. I've pulled out the book. We're not here to sell you the book. You should already have it on your shelf. I want to talk a little bit about what you've just mentioned in terms of how the information's structured, Rex, right? Because lots of people right now are trying to build an information business, a digital business. They've got a message to convey to the world. You've conveyed the messages that you wanted to share in a very particular structure and a very, is it an easy read? Is it something that people can absorb in small sections, bite-sized chunks, rather than paragraph? You read the full chapter to get the point. I've got about 4 or 5 game changers in 2 pages because of the way you've structured it. And I think structure is such an important thing that people overlook when they want to change the world. They want to build a business. They want to increase wealth. They want to change the way of thinking, right? So maybe that's a good place to start today, thinking about how we should be structuring information so people can actually understand it. Is that like a plan?
Fair enough. I mean, there's a lot of thought that went into the design and the layout of this book, from every word and every sentence. I mean, I'm very serious about that. I've been doing seminars and workshops since the late 70s, and so that's over 4 decades. And I taught acting, one time in workshops in Los Angeles, and I teach presentation skills and speakers how to be speakers, and presenters how to present, and people how to change their lives, in whatever area that they'd like to work in. And my workshops were always very finely tuned, highly designed. They seemed loose, and they seem, easygoing and fun and everything else. But there's a lot of thought and a lot of care that goes into how the material is presented, when it's presented, and how to get people to, for example, in my workshops, typically within the first 2 or 3 days, and the workshops would be 14 days, a couple of weeks long, 3 weeks, something. I would present all of the material. I would pre-expose people to the concepts so that they have a sense of what's coming, but they don't know exactly what's coming. It's like a mystery, and then everything unfolds. It's really a discovery process. So the book is laid out similarly to that. There's what we call peripheral learning in workshops, where, let me back in the 70s and 80s, people made fun of me. I mean, they actually criticized me. They said, you're having too much fun in your programs. People are enjoying it too much. You're not taking it seriously. They're singing and dancing. You're doing these crazy movements called contralateral movements. You got all these weird posters and things and stuff all around the room, and you're playing music and, meditating. And I was like, yeah. And what happened is that now a lot of people are doing that. Then, I was one of the pioneers with the arrows in the back. And now a lot of people are doing the very things that, I did, 40 years ago, because you want people to have a good time. You want people to have the quality of life and to be able to do it in a safe environment where they're challenged, but they're also safe. And by challenged, I mean stretched. I actually hate the word challenge, because so many people use that word as a substitute for problems, difficulty, and things that suck. What challenge I face is this. It's an opportunity that you have, but you don't understand it. So the book is laid out kind of similarly to it. You can dive in anywhere you want. You don't have to read it from cover to cover. I encourage you to read it from cover to cover. I encourage you to study it, make a study of it in the same way you would make a study of Think and Grow Rich or any other book. But but it's in bite-sized chunks, and that's another thing. There's what's called the latency and regency effect. And what that means is typically the first and last things are remembered and stuff in the middle falls apart. So I've structured the book so everything is kind of very small pieces where it starts and ends in that piece and then goes on to the next piece, So it's easily digestible and rapidly assimilatable, and then readily applicable if you're going to do it. So you don't have to get through the whole paragraph really, or through the whole book in order to understand what it's about. There's no audio book yet. Somebody asked, and that is something I have been wanting to do.
So Tara does a lot of driving, right? So Tara's always up and down driving through the canyons, and the audio book is definitely a method of conveying that information. But I want to kind of just come back a little bit, because the way you've structured this with everything in mind means that the message goes in and people can actually use that. And we were speaking off camera before we came on about, a book on a shelf.
Right.
What is that worth, right? Unless you apply the information. And I know there's like straight away you could open this and there's a piece of information that you can take, you can absorb, and you can apply. So how can people take that one fragment now and translate that if they're making a course or they're writing a book or they're putting together some information that they need to convey? What are some of the tips and things we could perhaps share with folks watching right now about how they could do the same?
Well, be brief, be to the point, right for a fourth grader. I mean, in other words, don't get so caught up in your prose that the message is lost. And then deliver with the value. What are the steps that you want them to do? And then tell them to do that. I think what makes my book so successful is I didn't write it for me. I wrote it with the person reading it in mind. What would they be going through? How would they change their life? What did they need to see, hear, feel, speak, and do in order to be able to create the life that they want and live life on their terms? So that is the intent of the book, so that the reader understands. In one place I'll say, here's like 5 things you can do, or 15 or 30 things that you can do, and we create a list. In another place, there's it's simple things, and some of them you're familiar with, and some of you may not know. But just for example, if people just smiled more, just throughout their life, they just smiled more, their life would change. Because when you smile, when you really smile, you release brain chemicals for well-being and for better health. When you frown, and it's far easier to frown, although it takes more muscles, and it's easier to frown because most people do. But when you smile, you bathe yourself in neurochemicals and hormones that are good for well-being. Something else that's good is to breathe. Just
helps.
Take a deep breath, shrug your shoulders, rub your ears. I mean, it is simple little things. But if you would do that, or say thank you throughout the day, thank you for everything. Oh, wow, thank you. I dropped my plate of food. Thank you. What will I discover? How can this be good? And the point I'm making is, for people who are writing books, if you can break it down into those kind of simple things that people can do that get a lot of bang for their buck, a lot of return on investment, then they can easily implement it. If the thing that I hate is the people who go, here's 112 ways to change. You go, it's like having 600 channels on the television set. You only watch 4 or 5.
Yeah, quite.
And in NLP, of one of the fields I'm known well for, people are always in a rush to go, here's the 57th meta program. I go, if you can't use the first 4 or 5, why do you want 57 of them? So, but if you could.
So like, there's a lot, right? And giving it the terrors in the chat again, right, for the 4th grader, and she's introducing the kids who are 17, just turned 17, to secrets of success and the dialogue, and some of this stuff is too deep in Tara's opinion right now. I know you've been doing this stuff since you was like 6, Rex, right? So this is like you will progress, but being able to convey your information in a way that gets people a result at the basic level has got to come before the advanced level, right?
Well, if you're going to build a house, you need to build the basement and the foundation and then the first floor before you build the 3rd or 4th floor.
So true. So true.
And yet most people are interested in the 3rd or 4th floor, or the top of the skyscraper. To be a real success, and I repeat this many times in the book, is master the basics. Master the things that's simple. When a golfer goes out and golfs, when you see these people at the PGA or these different, things, they aren't out there doing all the trick shots and everything else. They're practicing their putting. If you watch football players, soccer players, they're kicking the ball, they're throwing the ball. The baseball players are throwing it back and forth. They're practicing the basics. They're rehearsing the basics, because it's through the basics that everything else becomes possible. And so it's people who want to be advanced too soon miss the point. In the early days, centuries ago, there were apprenticeships where if somebody wanted to be, for example, a carpenter or a bricklayer or a plumber in the early days, they went and they did an apprenticeship with a master at that, and they learned and they imbibed and they did it until they became what was known as a fellowcraft. In other words, after 6 or 7 years of being an apprentice, they would graduate to fellowcraft, and after being a fellowcraft for a certain time and demonstrating sufficiency and proficiency, they were graduated to a master mason, master bricklayer, master electrician, master, carpenter, whatever it might be. Everybody's kind of gone crazy with the, I need a hack. I got a microwave. My food is done in an instant, but really the meals we enjoy most are those that are well prepared, not the ones that you get in a frozen dinner that you stick in the microwave.
There's a lot, obviously there's a lot in that. And I know people are taking things away. And sometimes it does come back to fundamentals, right? And we talked about the foundation. People have got this habit of wanting to run ahead at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But we mentioned at the beginning, hey, technology must work, but you can't beat a book. It's like there's messages in things that you may overlook, and it might be those messages that are actually the most important. That's
well, one of the reasons why I'm as successful helping people as I am, and why my career has spanned all these years, is because if you understand how the brain works, to the extent that we can, because it's the brain trying to understand itself, but to the extent that we can, the easier it becomes to make changes. And if you understand that your brain has a purpose, it's to get you to survive and it's to get you to thrive. It wants you to avoid danger that would take you off the planet, in one way or the other, and have you have a wonderful life so that you can thrive and reproduce and further the species. And from birth to the transition time, you have every opportunity to engage in making your life wonderful and thriving. And yet most people just barely survive. My message is, hey, you can thrive. But how do you thrive? Well, you do it the same way the animals do it. They have a problem, they deal with the problem, and then they forget about it. They go on. My dogs come and they greet me every day as if I'm the best thing on the planet because they're excited to see me in that moment. If you lived with that kind of passion and that kind of freedom and that kind of ability to flow from one state to the other without bringing baggage along or contaminating it, you would be far better. Psychology is a wonderful field. At the same time, it's done a lot to damage us in the sense of making us victims to our own self. We have silly concepts like sabotaging yourself. You don't sabotage yourself if you understand how the brain works. What you do is your brain has learned a habit. Like the brain doesn't care, for example, if you smoke. I mean, think about that for a second. If you took the time and the effort to develop smoking, you didn't pick up a cigarette once and go, I'm a smoker. You smoked and you did it repeatedly until any habit, really, biting nails, anything, or learning good habits. It was repeated enough times consistently and correctly until it became a habit, until the neural pathways were laid down in the brain. And what is a habit? It's something that's reliable and automatic. You don't have to think about it in order to do it. So we have automatic habits. Or some people think of them as triggers. So if you're driving down the road and somebody offers you a hand signal and you don't like that, you may immediately feel different, get angry, swear, curse, or give them the same hand signal back. That's automatic. It works reliably until you change it, until you go, maybe you have to reframe it, or you have to think about it differently, or you have to disengage, you have to do something. Oh, maybe they're in a hurry, and but you do that enough times until it becomes a different habit. Then somebody gives you a thing, you're like, whatever. You're free from it. So it's about laying that foundation down and doing the simple things, the easy things, the fun things that get you the most return on your investment. So smiling, what I said earlier, if you just smiled more throughout the day, you would feel better throughout the day. People go, well, I'm facing all these problems. But when they do that, look at it, I'm facing all these problems. They screw up their face and they get concerned and their body posture does the thing. And then they release the chemicals for distress or stress, disease, disorder, and that doesn't help you solve problems, because when you're stressed, your physiology, what happens in the body is that your neurology actually constricts, your peripheral vision constricts, you get in the fight or flight system when you're out in the jungle and something scared you or was going to eat you so that you had to flee, fight, or run. Your peripheral vision shuts down because your focal point is where can I go? So you pick that thing and you run toward it. Your cerebral cortex shuts down. You don't need to think, you just need to act. So that reptilian part of the body takes over. So you just fight or flee. The blood that you have in your heart, it leaves the brain and the torso and goes to the extremity so that you can run or you can punch. So there's stuff that's going on in your body when you're stressed. Now we live 24/7 in boxes and in workplaces and everything, and keep a certain amount of chronic stress, or somebody looks at you wrong and they go, or they say something in a tone of voice that you don't like, and we go, and we got to learn to let that go. We had to learn to be free of that and cultivate habits of well-being. So smiling is one of the best things you can do. Saying thank you and being grateful is one of the best and easiest things that you can do to make your life just so much better. And it seems weird at first, but I teach juggling in my workshops, not so people can become master jugglers, but because most people don't think they can.
Yeah.
So they get a couple of balls. And one of the first things you need to know when you're beginning juggling is you're going to drop balls. Well, it just goes without saying. Even master jugglers drop balls. So you get over the fact that you're going to drop balls. And I always recommend getting those square balls instead of the round balls. Then you don't have to chase them unless you want the extra exercise. But as you begin to juggle, what happens is you find out what your conversation is. You go, oh, I suck. Oh, this is terrible. I'll never get this. All that. None of that helps you juggle. That's the stuff that impedes juggling. If you said, oh, I love this. This is great. Oh, I dropped the ball. Cool. This is wonderful. This is good. Ultimately, you would learn to juggle faster and easier. But know this, you're not going to be a master juggler the first day. You're going to juggle. And the more you juggle, the easier it gets. The easier it gets, the more fun it gets. The more fun it gets, the easier it gets. Until pretty soon you're juggling. And you're juggling well. And then you can take it further. So you build the foundation, you master the basics, or you focus on the basics, until, you develop the automatic and reliable habits that get you moving forward in your life the way you want to be going. And for most people, a lot of it is undoing and unlearning. It's just unlearning things, undoing the things that have, hold you back and stuff like that. And then working with yourself is cooperation. You and I work together. We want to work together in harmony and unity, and we want to have a shared vision and a mission. Same thing people need to do for themselves is to work together in harmony and not create this, ruption between their head and their heart and their gut and all that kind of stuff. And they'll be that much better. I went on for a long time, so.
I want to grab people's thoughts on this, and we've got some mastering basics is everything in the chat. Catherine's lighting us up with the stars and the hearts. Tara said a very good explanation. Well said, Uncle Rex, from another user. The name's not showing up in the chat. If you're new to StreamYard, you can actually give StreamYard your permission for us to see your name. And you can go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and that means you'll show up in the chat. There's a thing at the bottom of the screen shows you how to do that. But let us know in those comments, have you faced a situation where you've entered that fight or flight mode? You have focused on getting out of there quick. You have maybe let a few things slip in terms of what you should be thinking about, and you've instincts have kicked in. What does that feel like? Maybe you want to share some of that with us. Is Rex right on the money, or do you have a different opinion? Let us know in the comments and have a bit of dialogue going, because this is as much your show as Rex's show and our show, right? So if you guys can get involved with that and get involved with the discussion, has this been helpful? Because it's always been clear to me, Rex, that as humans, we really do resist change, right? And we've talked about change. You've mentioned change 3 or 4 times. And whether the book's trying to get you to change, or the program's trying to get you to change, or there's somebody on a stage trying to get you to change, right? All of this stuff, people trying to do things to you to make you do different things, you resist that. And it's a similar mechanism that goes on in the brain, right? It's like we're hardwired, not just from birth, but for like forever, right? Evolution is a slow process. And people are hardwired to flee danger and resist change, right? So say, hey, tomorrow you're going to leave your home and you're going to emigrate. That's not a nice instant feeling that you've got to do that tomorrow, right? And you're like, oh no, everything's going to change. You resist it straight away. You try and find a way to stop that. Am I wrong? Am I right? But sometimes you need to change. You know you need to change, but you're still resistant. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Rex, and people in the chat, but a game we used to play, we'd say, hey, face each other, two people in a group, make a subtle change to your appearance. Turn away from each other, make a subtle change to your appearance, and you'd do that 3 times, and people would have 3 changes. And then you'd be quiet, and people would go and sit down and put everything straight back. And the point is, as soon as I stop talking and asking you to make these changes, you go and put everything back, right? You go back, your hat's back on, your shoes are back on, you took the pen from behind your ear. And that just illustrates that as soon as that dialogue ends saying, hey, this is a good idea, let's change, let's go this way, people go back to whence they came. And we've got to try and control that if we want to be successful in life, in business, in a career. What's your thoughts on that resistance? And folks in the chat sort of get involved as well.
Well, I don't call it resistance, first off, but I will acknowledge that term and the use of it. In other words, the brain's job is to keep you consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And it loves learning, and it loves changing. It loves opportunity and puzzles and mysteries and adventure and all that sort of stuff. But it also wants you to stay pretty much the way you are, which is the way you learned in the first 7 or 8 years of your life. From 0 to 2, you're mostly asleep and you're in delta, and from 2 to 5 or 6, 7, you're in theta, and then you jump into alpha. Or between alpha is, you close your eyes, you go into alpha, but then you pretty much your brainwaves develop in beta. So the first about 2 years of your life, you're asleep as a baby. You sleep more than anything else. And you're a sponge from 0 to 4 or 5, 6, 7 years old. That's why Aristotle said, show me the 6 or 7 year old and I'll show you the adult, because our personality is wired by that time. So it's wired, and it used to be thought that it was immutable. It was unchangeable, that the brain was like a jar, and once it was filled, there's nothing you could do about it. We understand it differently today. It's more like, while the computer metaphors are all great and wonderful, it's more like a jungle. It's like a living, thriving thing that, flourishes or withers depending on how it's used. If you deprive it, it's going to wither. If you nourish it, it's going to thrive. So what happens for us is we learn certain habits of thought and of feeling and of speaking, or the words that we choose, and of being, and our brain seeks to keep us the same. Once you learn, think about this, once you learn how to open a door, almost all doors you recognize and can open. I mean, some of them are tricky, right? You learn to sit down on a chair or a couch or a sofa or a divan or whatever you want to call it, and those class or those categories of things to sit on. You don't have to learn how to reopen a door or how to sit on things. Where it becomes problematic is when you get into a new car and everything is different. The Prius doesn't start the way the old car does. Sometimes the key was in the ignition, on the steering column. Other times it's in the panel. The gas tank is on one side or the other side, and you don't know. And so suddenly you get in there and you're like, well, I don't know, or you're driving and you suddenly realize, oh my God, I didn't adjust the mirrors. I don't know where this is. I don't know how to do the radio. Well, the brain actually likes that because it's a challenge, it's a mystery, and you can figure it out. But the point is that the human doesn't necessarily like it. They're going, this is troublesome. So what we call resistance is really staying within a parameter, a fairly fixed parameter of what's comfortable for us. We call it a comfort zone, and we don't want to leave our comfort zone. So if we don't want to leave our comfort zone, the only thing that's going to get us to leave our comfort zone is what? Hardship, difficulty, problems, things that suck, things that you want to move away from, things that you hate, things that you don't like. So the world gives you all these opportunities to change. And what do? We go, I don't want that. I don't want that. Get away, get away, get away, get away. Because we resist the very things that will change us. So instead of looking at like, oh my God, this hardship is here, it's an opportunity for me to be different, to find resources and possibilities and opportunities and to excel and grow and leave my comfort zone and transform my life. We go, I want to remove the problem so I don't feel any discomfort. That's one of the habits that we want to change and transform from going, I need to escape difficulty, into whatever happens, I can navigate and I'm good with it. And it's great. And it contributes to me. And I may not know how yet, but I always land on my feet. Things always happen, in a way that allows me to be happier and more successful, and to let go of the baggage from the past. If you think about it, people, if you wore every piece of clothing you've ever put on in your life today, you wouldn't be able to move. Now let that sink in for a second. Yet people do that with their experiences. They carry the bad ones around, and they surround themselves in all this crap until they almost can't move emotionally or mentally. And this is why attitude is the number one predictor for success in all areas of your life. If your attitude is, bring it on, I can handle this, I am good, I am in charge of my life, and circumstances won't get me down. It was like Napoleon Bonaparte said, circumstances, damn the circumstances, I dictate the circumstances. That's the kind of attitude you want to have, so that you don't get the wind kicked out of your sails, when things happen that you're not expecting. And things happen that way for me all the time. I recently told people I made this really beautiful breakfast. I did all this incredible stuff. I thought this was fantastic. I got my coffee, everything. I go, girl, come on, we're gonna go eat, right? And I get it, and I go to put it down. I drop it face down on the floor. The whole breakfast is on the floor. And I looked at it for a moment. I go, okay, I guess I'm eating something else. I mean, was I disappointed? Of course I was. I could have made it again. It wasn't what I had expected to happen, but okay. It's an opportunity to do something different. Why did it happen? I don't know, and I don't care.
But, there's so much good stuff, right? And Tara is resisting reading. She wants the audio, but she's going to break the cycle and go and get the book. The link is under Rex. And literally, this is like good stuff.
I want to encourage this. There's two things that happen. One is listening is a good way to learn, and one is reading is a good way to learn. Both are important. So yes, read it. And I always encourage people to get the hardcover or the soft cover. I mean, it's something that you hold in your hands because there's a kinesthetic component to it. You read it, you can highlight it, you can write on it, you pick it up, you can smell it. It's something real. Kindles are fine, but they're not the same. Yep. And then the audio program, sometimes if you have an audio program, we ever put out the audio book, read it while the audiobook is going, or put the audiobook on before you go to bed or while you're in the car. So both are very valuable. By the way, we can put these. I don't know if we should be able to put the comments up.
Yeah, we've got comments and the appearing on,
there you go. Okay,
on the screen. And Christy's here, Catherine's here. There's some amazing comments and some discussions starting to take shape. We're talking about navigating through hardship.
Yeah,
is something that I want to pick up on from what you've just said, because let us know in the comments and let us know in the chat, like, how long ago was it since the last time you faced some kind of thing that was just and then you got over it and you dealt with it in a way and you thought, did you think that wasn't so bad? Or did you think, like Rex said, that I always seem to come out of these things in a certain way? Because there is a big mindset thing about that, right? And some people forever dwell on the dwelling of the dwelling of the dwelling, and then you talk to them and they're like, this is just draining my energy trying to listen to some of these folks, right? So you've got to change your circles as much as change your habits in some respects, and often, and I know Rex, it was like triggered a thought, right? So what's the thoughts on that? Because people are commenting right now, but where does that navigation take us and the people that surround us on that journey and how they influence it?
Let me tell you a little bit of a story. I was doing a master practitioner. I had done practitioner, a master practitioner. I was doing trainer, and I had finished that block. It was about 6 weeks, and he was a tiny man, but he was a Catholic priest from Ireland, was there the entire time. His name was Father Terry, and this was in the 90s, And so I had finished the program, said, well, everybody, thank you, And not everybody stayed for all the training. Some came to practitioner, some came to practitioner master track, some did all three, that kind of thing. Anyway, so he left and went his way. I said bye, everybody, to those who were there at the last, and I left. And a couple of days later, I flew back to Los Angeles. And about a week later, I met with my manager and a friend of mine, and we went down to the Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade to have a dinner on a Saturday night, as I recall. And I was being the curmudgeon. Every restaurant I nixed. Nope. We walked all the way through the promenade down to the other end, and the final restaurant at the other side was a deli. And I said, well, obviously our last choice. We went in there, it was like way too loud. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So I said, look, I have to use the restroom, go on out, and I'll meet you out there. So they went out and walked across the street, and we're on the corner. I come out of the restaurant, I see them, and I start to walk to them when this hand clamps on my back, and I turn around, and it's Father Terry. I'm like, Father Terry, what are you doing here? He said, I've got family here, I'm visiting. And I'm like, well, that's fantastic. But here's the thing. When we got to the mall, it took us an hour and a half to park. We couldn't find a parking spot on 4th Street. It was all filled. We kept driving and going and everything else. I nixed every single restaurant, plus this is a particular date now. So how many decisions, how many things had to happen for me to run into this little Irish priest I'd spent 2 or 3 weeks ago, like 6 weeks with in another part of the country, and run into him on a corner in Santa Monica City against like 14 million people? How many things had to happen? I mean, it's infinitesimal. I have no way. I have no clue. All I know is that whatever decisions we made or didn't make led us to this meeting. Call it serendipity, call it coincidence, call it destiny, whatever you want to go. I don't care. Right? So I look back on my life and I go, everything that's ever happened to me, good, bad, right, wrong, or otherwise, has led me to where I am today. You can't, as Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect the dots looking backward. Everything that while I was going through it, I at the time may have resisted or hated or didn't like or didn't want or didn't enjoy or would prefer to have been otherwise, thought would never end or all that, because it actually has brought me to here I am today. So what does that mean? It means that I learned that the very thing that I hated the most is partly responsible for who I am and what I'm doing and where I am and how I got here. And without that, and I could be better, I could be worse, I could be any number of things, but I don't know, so it's like, I don't know, I don't care, I know. So I always tell people, if you consider something a problem, it is a problem. If you consider something a blessing, it's a blessing. So celebrate everything. It's dog shit or diamonds, you get to choose. And some people want to wallow in the dog shit, and they've been told to by their therapists or whatever, and I'm so sorry, or they say, I've been for 40 years, I've been a survivor of this, or I've been, some people say I haven't slept in 40 years. Well, first off, that's impossible. People like saying, I haven't peed in 40 years. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. They seem like it. They seem like it, but no. So, what we need to do is just kind of rewrite what's important to us. And one of the things that you can do is rescript your life and write it so that everything that's ever happened that you thought was a disaster has actually been good. The most disparaged person on the planet seems to be Pollyanna. Pollyanna? People talk about Pollyanna and Pollyanna glasses and the whole rosy, thing. Pollyanna was a young girl who found good in the not so good situations and encouraged others to do the same. And people say, oh, you're being a Pollyanna, or that's toxic positivity, or, you're optimism. You know what? What's the alternative to positive thinking? Horrible thinking, negative thinking, defeatist thinking. So attitude is truly everything. And that's why, it's so important, because if your attitude sucks, the results you get suck. If your attitude is great, you have a better chance of getting great results than you do if your attitude sucks. So
we've got a bunch of folks who I know, so I work with some of these folks, and these folks have got different businesses that are impacting the lives of people, right?
Yeah.
And a big mission as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, even as a parent, as you continually trying to guide people on a journey. And a wise man once said that you're a leader, you're not a savior. We can park that and come back to that in a short while. But as you're guiding people along and you think, well, look, I've heard this 25 times and it's the continual same repetition of doom and gloom, or, I've not slept for 40, whatever it is. How could you, through your work, through your methods, through your teaching, through your writing, through your programs, gradually increment the guidance that you're giving people so they can break free? As you say, let's rescript our lives. To the folks in the chat, this might be like, I get it. I'm all in. But for somebody who's been on the other side of that, who are thinking negative thoughts, what can we all do collectively as business owners, as mentors, as guides? Do we write the book? How do we get the people to read it and digest it? Or is that not the point?
Well, yeah, I mean, what a great question, and there's so many facets to it, like a diamond, you know. So it's quite brilliant, actually, when you think about it, and I appreciate that. There's a few things that I hope to be able to pull out from the question. One is you have to understand what you control and what you don't control, and regardless of religious belief or philosophy. In other words, Jesus said, say, if your faith is strong enough, you can say to the mountain, be thou removed, and it will be removed. Now, did he mean a real mountain? No, he's not here to ask. Or was it an allegory? Was it an example of, like making a mountain out of your problems or a molehill kind of thing? But the point is this. So let's pretend that you want to try and walk through a wall. So you run headlong into the wall and you smacked into the wall. Now you can keep doing that all of your life, trying to get through the wall. Or at some point you can go, maybe I'm not meant to go through walls. Maybe I'm meant to go around them or above them or put a door in them or something, but I'm not meant to go through them. It's not being a defeated person. That's kind of like getting smart at some point. So if your thinking is that way, if every time you think a thought, it blocks you, it stops you, it hurts you, it harms you, at some point, if you gather the awareness and the wherewithal, you go, maybe I need to change what I'm thinking about. Maybe I should think better thoughts, or think in terms of possibility. It's kind of like when I say dog crap or diamonds, there's only two choices. It's dog crap or diamonds. It's either not so good or it's good. You have to choose. And that's where the wisdom comes in. Some people keep choosing horrible things, horrible feelings, horrible thoughts, horrible words, horrible actions, horrible companies, horrible whatever for themselves. And they just have to stop. Now, they might need somebody to help them do that. But I'm the kind of person who goes, look, I'm putting out this message. A lot of people can take it and they can use it. But if you hire me to be a coach, to work with you, there's a certain amount of an agreement that we're making. And that is, you're asking me to coach you the best that I can. So I'm going to deliver the best that I can because you've asked that. We've got an agreement. We've got the contract. I'm not going to coach just everybody randomly on the streets because not anybody, they don't ask for it. Mm-hmm. If they don't ask for it, to give it to them is kind of like throwing your pearls before swine. It's not that they're wrong. It's that they're not asking for it. So they're not ready for it. So if you can say, hey, I've got this gift, and they go, oh, what is it? I said, well, I'd like to be able to help you with this. It's kind of like you'd have to say to somebody, if you had some food right here on your face and you didn't know it and you couldn't tell, would you want someone to point that out to you so you could remove it and look better? And they went, yeah. I go, well, would you mind if I share something with you right now about things that I've noticed that you might not be aware of? And if they go, yeah, or if they go, no, then okay. So, what I'm saying is to be respectful of people for where they're at. One of my favorite ways of thinking is that everybody wakes up, but at different times. So if you're in England and I'm sleeping and you're awake, am I bad for sleeping? And I would venture to say no, because you're just sleeping. And there's somebody who's sleeping in California and they're behind where I'm at right now. So one day they'll wake up, or at a certain time. So we all wake up to what we need to wake up to when we're ready to wake up. And that can be hastened by what people are exposed to or what they run into or the people they hang around with, are doing a workshop or a program or reading a book or whatever. But you can't push a rope. You can't force something, and you shouldn't.
I think we've hit on this on a few conversations that you can't push the rope, right?
Right.
And I think it comes back, I said it earlier, that you're a leader, you're not a savior. And to go out there and attempt to solve people's problems because you want to isn't the same as solving people's problems because they want you to, right?
Well, or that because they want to. I mean, in other words, it's like I had this conversation the other day, actually, on a show that I was a guest on. as a parent, we often tell our children what they should or shouldn't do, and they have no say in it. You're going to bed now, and that's the way it's going to be. Or you're going to get up now and you're going to go to school. They don't have a say in it. Well, but that's, and I get it. That's parent. I've done it. I mean, we're parent, but most people don't respond well to that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, can you help me change?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, that would be great too." If somebody says, "I don't want to change," I go, "Okay." I mean, I'm not here to make people do things they don't want to do. That's not my purpose. My purpose is hopefully to inspire people that they want to change. And if they get that message, there's a Bible saying, "He who has ears hears, and he who has eyes sees." But not everybody who hears, and not everybody who sees. The message when it's there. So I'm not here to force people to do things. There's a misnomer in the world, and that is that motivation comes from the outside. Now, in certain circumstances, like if you're in the military, you're in prison, or certain circumstances, people can force you to do things because you have no control over your environment or your body. You're incarcerated. You're in somebody else's hand. But for the most part, you're a free agent moving through the world, and the only limitations that we have are the ones that exist here. What we think we can and can't do, and of course, there are the laws of the land. So keep them. But the point is that you want to understand that motivation isn't something that happens to you. Like people go, "Well, I'm waiting to be motivated," or "I'm going to go see a motivational speaker." I mean, Muhammad Ali, and I write about him in the book, said, "I hated training all of the time. I didn't want to go run behind a car. I didn't want to go do all that stuff." He said, "But in order for me to be the champion that I was destined to become, I knew that I had to train. And so even if I didn't feel like training, I got up and went out and trained anyway." Why? Because his purpose, his goal, his intention to be the world's greatest boxer was greater than his desire to stay on the couch and eat donuts or watch television. The motivation comes from within, and you either want to do something or you don't. And you can make that argument. I don't like to assign that to people. I don't like to put my judgment or my labels on people and go, "Well, they're not ready to change, or they're resisting change, or we shouldn't enter into it. When they're ready, they will do it. They will come to it on their own, and at that time, they will either ask for help or they won't. So I'm very permissive in that regard. And yet, do I think everybody should? Absolutely. Do I think everybody should read a book, do a workshop, invest in themselves, get a good return on their investment because they do smartly? I've spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and maybe even more in the dollars, hours and hours and hours and hours in my lifetime, developing myself and working on myself so that I could do the things that I do, but also to enjoy the life that I have. Because there was a time when I didn't enjoy it, and I was living it and going through the same motions. I just didn't enjoy it. Now I don't do things that are that much different from back then, but I have an immense different response and different kind of life regarding that.
It's obviously there's all the insight and there's the experience and that's shining through. We've got business owners out there and people trying to make a difference in people's life. That it gives you a shift because you've got to focus on the people who are ready, right? The people who've got up, they're ready to go, and they're giving signs and showing that they want to receive what it is that you're offering. And I'm thinking of this with a marketing mind, and I'm thinking this with the parenting mind. I'm thinking of this with just a fresh mind in some respects. And it'd be great to know what folks in the chat are thinking right now after we've gone through this dialogue, gone through this discussion. Because once again, Rex, so much insight, so much powerful dialogue has come out in this show. We unwrapped the script from the last show and we did some marvelous AI wizardry, and it turned it into a book. Literally, like there's books worth of content that can change people's lives that can happen in a discussion like this. And I'd really like to know what folks think and comments and questions, anything like that in the chat right now, because we're 50 minutes in and we could talk for a long time, and we want to try and get some structure and guide people along the journey. It's clear where the skills lie and where the motivation for us lies, and we really want to make a difference. But I also know that we really are making a difference, and we're doing that by following certain guidance, certain paths that we know will always lead to that. And I often wonder, are businesses out there with the best intentions, but they potentially are on the wrong path? And I don't know what your thoughts are around that, but let's see what people come with in the comments as well.
Here's the thing. If let's say you wanted to drive from one town to the other town, and halfway you got there, you realized you're going in the wrong direction, what would you do?
Well, probably keep going blindly into the
because you could keep going all the way around the world and come at it from the other side. It'd take longer, and you'd exert more energy and effort. Or you could stop and turn around. If you make a mistake, if you're not doing it properly, you can make a correction. I may have talked about this in the last show. And by the way, the show is going to be different. We're going to have guests. We're going to have giveaways. We're going to have goodies. We're going to have all sorts of stuff. Danny's going to co-host. I'm going to co-host. We're going to have all sorts of stuff. And also, if you go to rexsikes.com/book and you get the book from Amazon right now, you also get a $497 training on mastery, which is what we've been talking about, of your mindset, your heart set, your word set, and your action set, so that you can be more aligned and congruent, and how to accelerate that learning process. So, and if you go and get the details from that web address, I will gift you that training. So that's part of what I offer with the book. But you got to get the book from Amazon in order to qualify for that. Now,
yes.
That said, I talked about the Wright brothers, and the Wright brothers were trying to make a heavier than aircraft, and they spent a lot of time, failing. Napoleon Hill, or as we understand it, would be called temporary defeat, but they were failing, and they were being criticized by their own family. Their fathers, like, you guys are idiots, give it up. The press thought they were stupid. Everybody thought they were idiots to even bother to try and do this, because if God wanted you to fly, we'd have wings, right? So they kept doing their thing, and whenever they would fail, when it didn't work out, they could say, well, I'm throwing in the towel, or I'm stupid, I don't know enough, we're never going to do this, and they could get into that kind of mindset. But what they did is they made corrections. They were bike manufacturers, they were bicycle guys. They didn't know anything about flying. So all the while that they're doing their stuff, up until the day they flew on Kitty Hawk, they were experimenting. They didn't know what the answer was. They didn't know how to fly. In fact, they didn't know how to fly until after they flew. But once they flew, they could tweak it. They could improve on it. They could make it better. But all the other while, they were just hoping and wanting and intending and doing it and doing it and doing it, in spite of all of the stuff that didn't work. They were consistent and they persisted, but they were also flexible and to adjust and to take the feedback that was available to. And that's the very same thing we can do in our everyday lives, our businesses. And the problem with most people is that they get entrenched, they get stuck, and they get busy, but they don't get productive. It's kind of like if you're in quicksand, the best way to sink is to start making lots of motion, and get sucked down. What you should do, if you know this, or if you're ever caught out, in the water, people sit there and try and tread water. Just float on your back. You're designed to float. Your body is buoyant, and the surface tension of the water will keep you afloat. So relax and breathe and float. It's let go. Don't struggle. Don't create all this extra frenetic energy that isn't contributing to it. Hone your energy, get calm, get relaxed, get peaceful. Then what happens is your neurology opens up to serve you, so you can find your inner or outer resources around you. You can begin to scan better to see possibilities and opportunities that otherwise you would be missing while you're doing all this stuff. And how do we do that in everyday life? We get angry, we get mad, we sulk, we do things, we get frustrated, we go in a car and we pound the steering wheels, we do, or go into the office and yell at the staff. That's an example of the very same thing that people would do in quicksand, or, that would cause them to sink. Yeah, so smile more, breathe more, sigh, shake your body off. I have the Attitude Activator, by the way, which we haven't talked about, is an audio program that you put headphones on and listen to. And it's the basis of like, stop, drop, and roll. If you can remember that, the way this program works is it says you stop, take a deep breath and a pause, and then shift into the appropriate attitude that works for you in whatever area that you're using it for. But that's the key. You have to stop perpetuating the problem You have to stop perpetuating the old habit. You have to stop perpetuating the things that you don't want and pause. Your car, even in an automatic transmission, always goes into neutral when changing gears. So if you're going from drive to reverse, it first goes into neutral. If you go from drive to first or second, it goes through neutral. You need to take that pause. So if you're angry and yelling at something, the thing to do is stop when you realize it. That's what awareness is about. Pause, take a deep breath, shake it off, do whatever you have, smile, dance, jump, go in the closet, scream, yell, hey, I can do this, but take that pause and then shift into, I got this, I can do this. This is great. I love you, whatever. Because until you do that, you have all the momentum from the problem pushing you toward more of the problem. But if you stop it, cut it off, and then create the gap where it can't get, when there's a fire in the woods, they have what's called a backburn. Fire's coming to you this way. So what do? They set a fire here and burn it like that. And then they put all that out. So as the fire gets to you, what happens is it hits that backburned area and it stops because there's nothing to catch fire on. And then over here is the rest of the stuff. So you have to create that gap between your problem and the solutions so that you don't stay in the problem. Then you can find the solutions because you're in that area of neutral and you can look and you can scan and you can find things without being prejudiced by the issues or the problems that had been hampering you. It's really simple, and yet it is one of those things like juggling. Juggling is really just repetitive movements. It's hard, but not if you don't think it's hard. If you really love it, you're going to master it faster than if you think it's really hard. But the point I'm making is it's just simple movements, but you have to master those movements. And then it's like magic. You're doing a ball or two, and then you do 3, and then you do 4, and then you do 5, and the next thing you know, you're sitting on a tightrope, balancing on a chair on one leg while you're eating, a sandwich and throwing a ball and a bowling ball and a buzzsaw chainsaw.
So on next week's show, Rex will be on the tightrope with the buzzsaw and the sandwich with 3 square things juggling, doing crazy, something like that. I think everything we've shared and everything we've covered has kind of brought people around on a journey of thought and realization. I'm wondering how many people in the chat right now, because there's people who've stuck around all the way through this, have actually had some realizations that are actually helping them move forward in life and business and work and all the rest of it right now. Because I certainly have, and I know that every time we get into this, we get into the questions, we get into potential solutions. Just like we said at the beginning, though, if the book's on the shelf, you don't apply that, it means nothing. So I'd love to know what people have taken away from this, what they're going to apply. Of course, any recommendations for a book? Well, there's a recommendation for a book. We'll come back to the book. But like Rex said, we've got guests, we've got goodies, we've got giveaways, we've got some technical stuff, and really to try and connect your vision, your mission with the people you want to serve, whether that's your employees, your family, your kids, yourself. Life always seems to be better when you're doing things that bring around good and bring about change in others, whether you think you're doing that or you're not. I think most folks in the chat right now are having a big impact on the people that they're serving. That's commendable, and I'd love to know what you take away from this, what you'd like to see, and we're going to keep delivering this stuff for as long as possible.
Absolutely. Well, and we're all in it together. We're on a rock circling the sun, so we're in it together. And what I encourage people to do is, whether it's in replay or live, to comment or ask questions. And we'll go through. We have a group dedicated to the show on Facebook that people can join, Create Your Best Life with Rex on Facebook. But we're on YouTube and LinkedIn and on Twitter. I mean, wherever. But we're going to try and consolidate everything and have community that everybody can enjoy. So whether it's live or otherwise, go ahead and comment. And as far as what Danny just said, it's really important. If you have a takeaway, make it a bumper sticker. Not go on and on and on. But a bumper sticker is it's a little platitude that says like smile more, right? That's easy to do. Write down, smile more, breathe deep, have fun. Those kinds of things, if you write them down and you practice them in a day, and you can even pin them up around your house or put them on your flat screen TV up in the corner or something, or in the mirror in the bathroom or something, so you're always reminded. But write down your takeaway and no matter how small it is or how large it is, if it's a lot of words, condense it, get it down to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 words or something, and put it in the chat. But also you can journal it. You can do this, because what it will do is it will keep you motivated. It will keep you inspired. It will keep your awareness on, I want to do this. Back in the day, we used to sell a product that was a timer, and it was developed by a doctor to remind people to take their meds. And you could program it for every minute, every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes, every hour, every 12 hours, whatever it was for what your needs were. So I did it. I got it. And we sold it because I found this device, and I talked to the doctor. I was like, this is brilliant. But I put it so that I started with about every 10 minutes. So I got down to about every 5 minutes. I went down to every 3 minutes, and then it was a little bit too much. And it also vibrated. So it wasn't like a bell going off. It would vibrate. You could wear it on your belt. And the point is that about every 3 minutes to 5 minutes, I would ask myself a positive directed question, which I talk about in the book, not in detail, but my directed questions is all in my programs, or affirmations. But it was a way to remind yourself, or to breathe, or to smile, or to say thank you. So if you find a way to set a timer or your phone or something that reminds you to do this, and the best way would be to decide to remember to do this, because then you're in control of it, not relying on something outside of yourself. But to consistently practice the little simple things you could do, because they will add immeasurably to the enjoyment in your life.
So true, so powerful, and a pleasure to be part of this. And I think Tara said she's a master juggler, so take the long way home. We've covered the book. There's a lot of insight that's been shared in this. We are going to get these transcripts, and it would be great if everybody did join that group. We've got a page coming, and we're going to try and get all the replays on there, so everything's in one place. We'll gradually whittle this down so it's just on one channel. So you'll just have to do one place, which is pretty much going to be in the group. So we want to put this everywhere to start with, whether you're live on the replay, watching after we've recorded, watching during the recording. We appreciate you very, very much. And we are going to be moving forward with our guests, with our interviews, and doing as much as we can to give you some insight, some knowledge, some wisdom, and an opportunity to get involved. And who knows, some of you folks in the chat right now, you might be guests in the future. For now, Rex, we'll try and keep this to an hour. We're over time.
A little over.
Any closing remarks based on what we've discussed, where we're going, the direction, what you want to see?
Yeah, most importantly, it's about the relationship that we have with you and with each other, and the community that we build, and the ability for all of us to help improve not only ourselves, but the people around us, so that we all live a more fulfilled and more fruitful and more enjoyable life. And we're here. So again, if you have questions, leave them in the, wherever you're chatting from. Leave comments, share, like. You can go to our YouTube channels and hit the notification bell, and you'll always be reminded of when the show or other things that we're doing are up. Google Danny, take a look at who he is and what he's done. Google me, if you want to know more about us. Because then we don't have to talk a lot about who we are. You know it. And then visit rexsykes.com. There's programs and everything else in rexsykes.com book, and you'll get not only, if you get the book, you get not only the book, but you get an online training that I know you will enjoy. So Danny, you're amazing. I love doing this with you. I'm so grateful. And I would only say to the people again, remember, if you think, I'll let you talk too, but go ahead. Let me, as we're getting ready to exit here.
There's one more thing I wanted to show before we finish, and this is something that's coming very, very soon, that you're a part of, and some other famous faces as well. And this is amazing. Leadership Week. Rex, summarize that, because you're part of it and your face is on it. And I've got a diagram, a flyer. We can put that up in a second. But talk a little bit about this Leadership Week and what this is all about, and we'll put the image up to close.
So very cool. So I and the Los Angeles Tribune, Mo Rock and the Los Angeles Tribune have been working together for about 4 years now or longer. And we're friends and colleagues in mission, and that is to see positivity and transformation happen for all. And the Tribune's mission is to have a newspaper, a media source that doesn't just focus on bad news, but is a leader in terms of inspiration and helping people live the kind of lives that they'd like to be able to live, both personally and professionally. To that end, we do a number of summits and online events. We've got a live event coming up in May. We've got an online event coming up at the beginning of May, I should say. The 1st through the 7th is a leadership summit. And we've got amazing guests that are going to be there who are going to show up. Now, my thing about leadership is, so there's some of the people who will be there. There's Ty Lopez, Joe Vitale, Sharon Lecter, Robert Cialdini, Brian Tracy, myself, Mo Rock, and many other people. We have good news about a major guest just today saying yes, they were going to be there, and there's others that you can't see now. But it's the 1st through the 7th. It's the LA Leadership Week.com to register. And the purpose of registering is it's for free, but you get gifts or giveaways when you register and whatever the extra goodies are. So you want to register. LALeadershipWeek.com is right there. If you didn't catch it, go back and watch this at YouTube, my channel, or Danny's, or wherever you're watching it, rewind it and get it and go and register. And you'll be glad that you did. And but in terms of leadership, I always say this: a leader never says they're a leader. A leader leads by example, not by saying I'm a leader. So, there's plenty of people out there who want to be leaders and who tell you all the wrong stuff, and so you need to know the difference between an actual leader and a wannabe leader who may be very, very popular, but isn't truly a leader.
I think we've got something that we can get into as we move forward. Definitely leadership's going to play a big part in this, and it all ties together.
That'd be a great conversation for our next show because it's really important. And I have some very strong ideas about what constitutes leader and what constitutes, being a benefit to people. So if you're inclined to want to know that, come back the next time, because there's that plus other things, obviously.
Yeah, it's going to be good. But for now, over time, what folks have enjoyed the show. We're super grateful that everybody's joined us. Look out for Leadership Week. Look out for the next show back next week, same time, same place. Gradually reducing the channels that we're on, so everybody's in one place. Join the group. Check out all the socials that we've mentioned. Rex, a pleasure. rexsykes.com/book. Go and get the book right now. Claim the bonuses. From us, we're out of here. We'll be back next time.
Celebrate everything.
Let's go.